Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're exploring the brutal psychological truths about what really makes someone a genius. We throw words like smart and high IQ around all the time, right? But the truth is, so much of what we're taught is just, well, it's surface level. Real intellect, it runs way deeper than that. We're going to break down the emotional architecture of high intelligence, and honestly, by the end of this explainer, I bet you'll look at your own mind in a completely different light.
So I want you to just think about this for a second. What actually is the true sign of a high IQ? Like, if you met a legitimate genius today, how would you even know? Society basically tells us it's the person solving crazy complex algorithms in their head, or maybe the one completely dominating a debate with some rapid-fire memory. But cognitive science reveals the real answer is vastly different from that whole stereotype. In fact, true intelligence is way more invisible to the naked eye.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it completely flips the script on us. Just look at the perfect contrast between the cultural myth of intelligence and the actual paradigm-shifting reality. The myth, the stuff on the left, is literally what we're all graded on in school, right? Logical capacity for math, crushing spatial puzzles, mastering rigid systems. But look at the reality. At the highest levels, intelligence is not just a mental score or some parlor trick. It actually acts as an emotional filter. Highly intelligent people just process reality differently. They don't just act smarter, they've completely mastered their own internal emotional world.
Which brings us to our first major takeaway, the real definition of genius. It's not about being the smartest person in the room, it's actually about having the fundamental security to admit when you just don't have the answers.
To see how this works in practice, let's look at this concept, stepping outside your own mind. This is all about how the truly intelligent mind handles itself from the inside out.
The absolute core of this is what's called metacognitive IQ, and cognitive psychology considers this to be the absolute rarest form of intelligence. Think of it as the ability to step back and observe your own thinking, as if it literally belongs to someone else entirely. Imagine you get this really harsh email from your boss. If you have high metacognitive IQ, you don't just feel defensive, you actually watch yourself feel defensive. You're constantly analyzing your own biases, constantly challenging your own logic. You basically become a neutral observer of your own brain. It's wild.
And you can see the massive behavioral gap this creates. Average minds are almost entirely driven by immediate impulses. An email triggers them and boom, they instantly fire back a reply. But highly intelligent minds, they practice cognitive detachment. They literally put a buffer between the trigger and the response. They question their own reactions before they ever let those reactions dictate what they do next.
Let's move to our next section and see how this all builds together. Dropping the need for approval. This is where an unshackled ego comes into play.
When you've got that level of cognitive detachment, you inherently start developing deep intellectual humility. And here's the brutal truth. A massive sign of low intelligence is extreme certainty. That complete refusal to ever doubt yourself. But highly intelligent people, they are totally comfortable looking you dead in the eye and saying, you know what, I don't know yet. A lack of information isn't an ego threat to them. It's just room to grow. They argue strictly to understand, never just to win cheap points. And because of this, they often feel almost uncomfortably accurate about their own personal flaws. They see themselves with zero filter.
Because they see themselves so clearly, they develop what's called low validation dependency. Look, most people are completely trapped in this endless, exhausting cycle of craving others to see their side or applaud their choices. And let's be real, constantly trying to sound smart and explain everything to everyone, it is exhausting. It's like trying to win every single argument in a comment section. Just a massive, massive waste of energy. Highly intelligent people figure this out early. They just stop craving that social validation. They really don't need you to know they're smart.
I really want you to let this quote sink in for a second. They value truth more than belonging. Man, that is incredibly powerful. Their entire identity is built on visible integrity rather than external applause. Because they prioritize the truth over just fitting in, they are perfectly comfortable walking alone. They're totally fine being completely misunderstood by the crowd, just as long as they are honoring what is actually true.
Okay, so let's shift gears from internal detachment to external application. Section 3, solving people instead of puzzles. This is where intelligence acts as a superpowered social decoder.
So the crucial point is how this emotional architecture actually shows up when a highly intelligent person interacts with the world. Well, truly intelligent people possess advanced emotional mapping, or high social cognition. They don't just sit in the corner solving math equations, they solve the people around them. They can read a room instantly. They understand exactly why someone is acting or feeling a certain way, because they're picking up on these tiny micro-detail shifts. A subtle change in tone, a super fleeting facial expression. Stuff that the average mind completely breezes right past.
And here is arguably the most fascinating dynamic of the whole thing. They do not use this superpower to show off. Nope. They use their high social cognition to make others feel smart. This is where raw intellect beautifully meets emotional intelligence. Instead of using their big brain to dominate a conversation or make people feel small, they use it to create absolute clarity. They simplify these wildly complex ideas so that everyone around them feels capable, involved, and understood. Which brings us to our final major sign of a high IQ, the art of delayed judgment. This requires an immense amount of mental discipline, especially when facing new or highly stimulating situations. The core definition here is cognitive inhibition. When something happens in life, the average mind immediately rushes to label it. Oh, that's good, or oh, that's bad, based purely on an instant emotional reflex. Imagine a big project failing at work. Cognitive inhibition is the mental strength to literally hit the brakes. It's the power to stop those intense emotional reactions long enough to actually analyze reality for what it is rather than what it feels like in the heat of the moment. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how they do it. The internal process is incredibly deliberate. Step 1, stop the emotional reaction. Literally, just pause. Step 2, delay the judgment. Do not slap a label on the event yet. Step 3, analyze reality from multiple angles. Highly intelligent people allow ideas and situations to just sit there. They let them evolve and be examined thoroughly from every side before they ever decide what they actually believe about them. This exact practice is known as cognitive patience. Now, in the heat of the moment, this might actually make a highly intelligent person seem a bit quiet, or maybe even slower to speak up in a really fast-paced meeting. But make no mistake, this cognitive patience is exactly why their long-term choices are overwhelmingly superior. Their decisions just age better over time. And why? Because they were born from objective reality, not from some fleeting emotional reflex. So, let's bring all of this together with our final section, assessing your emotional architecture. Because ultimately, true intelligence is really about how quietly and efficiently your mind works when absolutely no one is watching. As we've seen throughout this explainer, true intelligence is definitely not a flashy performance you put on for a crowd. It's so much deeper. True intelligence means successfully separating emotion from information. It means having the incredible, raw courage to actually change your identity and your core beliefs when the evidence proves you wrong. And above all, it means having the deep-seated security to calmly admit what you simply don't know. It is a deeply internal, personal commitment to finding the truth rather than just protecting your own ego. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Is your ego currently hijacking your potential? Are you so busy trying to look smart that you're totally missing out on the emotional architecture required to actually be brilliant? Take a moment today to really reflect on which of these emotional signs, from metacognitive detachment to cognitive patience, hits the closest to home for you. Drop the number of the sign you need to work on the most down in the comments. And hey, if you're ready to keep rewiring your brain and uncovering more brutal truths from psychology, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.